Shanti. Good evening and welcome to the first part of a four-part series, Praise of Shiva. We are starting a little bit late because we're having troubles also connecting on to Instagram, but we're just going to proceed. And so for March 1st, that is Shivratri, which is a well-known festival in Hinduism. And of course, the Brahma Kumaris, we are very much interested in various types of spiritual holidays, religious holidays, about the spiritual significance. Raja Yoga is really about this common thread that ties us all together, regardless of race, religion, gender, language, country. And so always going into the spiritual significance of anything. So because Shivratri is coming up, there's such a strong inspiration to look at these different titles of God. And so for a part of the sessions we will just explore a different title, different attributes of God. Different religions have these different titles, attributes, praises of God, and that there is a very deep spiritual significance about these different titles and why this unique being, excuse me, is remembered in that way. So tonight's session is about this name, Shiva, that is in the Hindu scriptures. But if we are going to explore all these different qualities of who God is, Shiva is actually the most accurate and has nothing to do with language, culture, the religion. It's the meaning of what Shiva means. So Shiva actually has three meanings and is the closest in terms of the definition and function, occupation of who God is. So the first point of what Shiva means is point, actually. And it basically means so many different layers of what that is. And one aspect of point is that he always stays in the essence, in the seed of all that matters. And that's the issue that we have when it comes to problems, when it comes to perspectives, when it comes to anything, is that sometimes we lose perspective. Sometimes we get lost in the details and we forget what the point is, or we can't find the seed of the problem because we know this, we have this in our everyday language. If we knew the seed of the problem, if we knew exactly what it was that was driving all these complications, expansion, confusion, misunderstanding. And that would help so much to be able to resolve things. And another thing about essence or point is it has basically so much power. And for those who might be aware of essential oils, that's something that actually is quite costly. It's quite pricey for it, but how much labor, time it takes to actually collect this essential oil. It's quite interesting. But within this oil, which is extracted from different types of fruits, plants, vegetables, so forth, it's so concentrated with certain nutrients, and they're used, as you know, for healing and so forth. But also in terms of point, essence, then when it comes to something that actually has power and it's not physical power, then it has impact, just as we're using this example of essential oil. When it comes to spirituality, that's really what we need right now is power. And as mentioned, it's not physical power, it's not violence, it's not coercion, but it's what really can help us change, heal us, move us back to who we are. And the final aspect in terms of point is that the Supreme Soul, God, his form is a point. And basically what that means is a point is not something you can actually see. And so, and yet he exists. And we are also like him. He is a soul, and we are also souls. And meaning that when we say that we're a point, it can't be seen, we're actually not physical. We do have a very defined sense of self. And when we realize that who he is actually also a reflection of our original self. So one of the things I always think about and experience too, because he's a point in the sense he's not affected by things. He's free. We use this word detached, but I know it can be quite a strong feeling for some if they don't know what that means, but completely free, unaffected, uninfluenced, but still, which comes to the third meaning of Shiva, is very, very full and very, very much abundant in terms of benefiting all. But we'll mention about that third definition in a second. So this is a meaning of the depth of what it means when we say point Shiva, that first meaning. In terms of the second meaning, is that he is always the embodiment of the true nature of what we used to be like. We are souls, and he is a soul. And that's why he is known as a supreme soul. Supreme doesn't mean better than. It just basically means always, always beyond. This soul is very unique because he doesn't take on a body like we do. As souls, we are spiritual beings, and we express, experience, we are aware, we decide, we think when we're actually in the physical. When we're actually in our true home, which is this dimension of silence, of light and peace, our home as souls, we don't express at that time. We do have the capacity to think, to be aware, to interact, but we need to be in physicality for that. And so there was a time when we actually experienced ourselves to be separate from the body. Doesn't necessarily mean that we are ignoring the body. Just like when we're driving the car, there's a distinction between me, the driver, and the car. So if anything happened to the car, it doesn't necessarily mean it is happening to me. So there is a really huge implication when we can't seem to feel and discern and are aware of the difference between this body, which we know is temporary, and everything related to it. There is never any guarantee regarding what could happen to relationships, possessions, even position. And so there is a distinction between me, the soul, and this body. But through time, we forget ourselves because we're in it, we become quite familiar. However, the Supreme Soul doesn't come into the body and experience physicality and go through rebirth. So he never forgets who he is. This is the parent of all souls. And so he stays in the truth of being a soul. And we used to be in that true state. But when we forget that awareness of ourselves and we perform actions, every action in which we keep forgetting ourselves and make decisions, not aware of who we are, we just reinforce this sense of myself that becomes less and less real. So he is the embodiment of truth. And many know that when you feel that something doesn't feel true, feels false, when someone's saying something, it's not honest, it's not clean, they're hiding something, there's a second agenda, or when you can just tell when somebody's actually lying as well, or when it comes to something that isn't authentic, intentions, even products, you know that everyone in the world is drawn to that which is real. And that could be in interactions, it could be as much as I mentioned about just buying products, but this pull for something true is always something that's innate in us, because our true nature is that we are the embodiment of truth. But when we forget ourselves, when we move farther and farther away, there is actually a spiritual dissonance, even a psychological dissonance, a disconnection from this original sense of self and a character of who I am. I can't seem to operate and honor that in my actions and interactions. So this is a being who's always in that true state. And what would it be like to be in the presence of someone who is, in that state all the time? And finally, the third meaning of Shiva is benefactor. And I realize actually when it comes to facilitating the Raja Yoga course, many don't know what that word means, benefactor. And it's very much connected to the word benevolent, and realizing that many don't know what that means either. And so benefactor comes from the word benefit. And benevolent is very much connected to it, which I love that word benevolent because it has the word love in it. So in terms of benefactor, this third meaning of Shiva is that his only role is to benefit. And it's quite interesting because on our journey of not understanding ourselves, our perception of ourselves has also become distorted. And there's an immense level of shame and heaviness and deep in the consciousness because we've forgotten ourselves. And so because of that, there's also been, many births of suppression, repression, and oppression. But it's because we've forgotten ourselves. And so what has happened then, our perception of ourselves becomes distorted. Our perception of others become distorted. We have forgotten that relationship with our spiritual parent when we forgot ourselves. And so then our perception of him is also distorted. That this is a being who never judges. And when we realize it's a soul who never takes a body of his own. And so he never ever changes. He always stays in that state of truth. He's always free, always stable. Because nothing about him shifts at all in terms of that truth of being the soul. So he has no capability actually of judging and criticizing. All he has is just that pure state of being a soul. And that is the state we're actually missing. That's what we all miss, actually. It's more than just peace. We miss ourselves, the embodiment and experience of ourselves. And we certainly miss being free from being affected by things, attached to things when we never used to be dependent on things. But we miss being full, and we miss feeling content. And content isn't apathetic. It's just that we're not trying to expect things from others. That was not our true state. So this is a soul who always stays full. And because he always stays full, he always stays in that truth. He's always in that sense of essence, free, a point, and has the capacity of knowing what is the seed of the issue, what is the seed of the solution as well. And then he can be very naturally one who benefits all. And so this name Shiva is actually very significant in terms of just the quality of being, of who he is, his personality and his function. And furthermore, what's really unique is because we as souls, we do take rebirth. And so our name changes. So in one birth, I may be in one body that's of this country, in another birth in another body of another country, another culture, whatever I identify as. These different labels I identify as. And as many know, many struggle with labels as well. But basically, this name, so to speak, that I identify as is actually just that my personality keeps changing, my awareness keeps changing. God is the only one whose name never changes because he doesn't come into a body. So there's a huge spiritual significance to that too. He never changes in terms of who he is, his function, the state of truth. So he can become a mirror, a guide in terms of what we originally were like and who we will actually become again because we are eternal. So we just go through the cycle of coming back to ourselves again when the time feels right. And so we're going to end off with a little reflection and experience. And then join us again next week as well for this the second part. Same time, Friday at 8 o'clock to 8:30. Every being in this world is looking for that experience of being accepted, feeling of belonging, feeling of not being judged, being understood. And that feeling is very strong. At the time when there is the greatest level of sorrow inside. When that is for every being, it is unique. And the reason for that sorrow is unique. But that sorrow comes when we forget who we are, we become so far from who we are. And when we miss that feeling of belonging, feeling connected, we miss that feeling of being accepted, that everything is okay, that even words are not enough. To pull oneself out of that sorrow. And that is when the soul remembers one unique being. Just this very deep memory inside. The memory of their spiritual parent. That is why souls call out, cry out to God at the darkest hour. It's this deep memory of a being who has that presence that is calm. That presence that is so still, like a seed, like a plant. And yet this being is always full of the true qualities that I, the soul, used to have. So yes, this being is a point, but also an ocean concentrating the essence of being the soul. A being who always stays in that truth. So he never changes in terms of being real, never fluctuates. No expansion into confusion and complication. No change in intention of his part to just benefit. A being whose vibration, because of just being constantly a point that is not physical, not pulled here and there by events, physicality, anything of this world, stays constant in that state of truth. Because he always stays in that constant state of truth, completely unmoved, uninfluenced. That is why a point is his form. It's not physical, it's that constancy. Unwavering, always in that truth. Never loses himself. So his presence feels very full when I am in his presence, when I feel so empty. In a state of truth, always uninfluenced, always in the essence, the seed of the solution of what matters. His vibration actually heals me. His personality with no trace of judgment. Always in its company, I become more and more myself. I become whole. I feel more and more that stillness is also me. That my true form is also this point, and yet, like an ocean, when I fill up, it's in this experience that I naturally also let go. I let go of that which hurts, harms, that keeps me in the past, keeps me in a false sense of self. I become just like my spiritual parent. I feel this constancy, this stability, like a point, and yet full. And yet I exist inside this body. I heal. And I feel my true self while I'm still aware I'm in the body. So that the healing is such that I experience I clearly am defined as a soul, separate from the body, without rejecting anything of physicality. That's just the experience of the real me in the middle of the context in which I forgot myself. And that is true healing, like reversing the effects of time and actions, reversing it in terms of healing my awareness, the experience of me. So I feel I am a child of my spiritual parent, his qualities, the point as truth and benefactor are also my qualities as well. Feeling this stillness, this stability, feeling the effects of time fade away. Feeling how refreshing being true is, the truth of me, in the company of the truth. Fill up drop by drop. And filling up just means I experience what it feels like to be whole again. And so naturally, I will feel benefits in different situations because my perceptions change. I feel different, but I also can benefit others as well. Just by my experience of being who I truly am. Linked to and belonging to my spiritual parent. Thank you again for joining. And we will see you next week, Friday, 8 o'clock to 8:30. Our second part of Praise of Shiva from Shanti.